It's the final word daily on this T20 World Cup. Adam Collins with you. Daniel Norcross back with me. He's been commentating the two games today between New Zealand and Namibia, followed by India and Scotland. Let's start with the second game first. Daniel Norcross, India did it in some style.
They really did. It was absolutely terrific. It was a marmalisation. It was extraordinary. We've seen another one earlier in the tournament. We saw Australia do it to Bangladesh. If anything, this was even more pulverising in a way. And it's, look, there are so many ramifications. We're going to have to talk them through. I think India might just have won too well, but more of that anon.
Yeah, let's call out your 30-second summary on the basis that game was over so quickly. Scotland all out for 85 in 17.4 overs, 3 for 15 for Shami, 3 for 15 for Jadeja, two bowlers who, especially in the case of Shami, started the tournament poorly, but much as it's been for India since losing on Sunday to New Zealand, they have really clicked when it comes to making the most of their net run rate opportunities, and Jadeja was excellent. Likewise, Bumrah. Scotland really stood no chance with the exception of Munsey, who was sparkling at the start and Alisk at the end with some lusty blows, but it was all a bit in vain given how quickly wickets were falling, 3 in succession in the 17th over. It wasn't a hat trick, it was punctuated by a run out in between, but it was a fairly sorry sight. Then India getting the job done in 39 deliveries. Some extraordinary hitting from Rohit Sharma and KL Rahul. KL Rahul bringing up his half century in just 18 balls. Rohit Sharma made 30 in double time, and it means, Daniel, that in the process India have somehow gone from having a net run rate of like negative 1.5 4 days ago to now having overtaken Afghanistan.
And I'll tell you what the ramifications of this are. And look, I'm not blaming India for this, but I'm not sure they've entirely thought it through. And I'll tell you for why. Because now, because their net run rate is superior to Afghanistan, the only way Afghanistan can qualify is if they beat New Zealand and well, because India played Namibia in their last game. So now Afghanistan have to swing for the hills. Now that might be good for Afghanistan, but it might also be good for New Zealand, because if New Zealand win, then they're through. Don't forget about their run rate. It doesn't matter anymore. So
right,
now,
so, and that game's played. That game's played first, isn't it? So the Afghanistan-New Zealand game. So Afghanistan are incentivised to go for it from the get-go because they need to make up net run rate on India, who are playing Namibia in the second game, and they'll work on the assumption that India are going to marmalise Namibia. So they've got no choice but to go bonkers from the outset, which of course means, as it is in 4-day cricket or 5-day cricket, the other team's chance of winning goes through the roof.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, look, it's very, very hard to say to your team, guys, we need to improve our net run rate, but not by too much. So say, you know, can we win in 12 overs? Because that way Afghanistan would still have had a superior net run rate, and they would have thought to themselves, well, we've just got to win the game. But now, Afghanistan, they have no choice. They have got to go for it. They've got to try to win. Probably they've got to try to win in either sort of 14 overs or by around 50 or 60 runs, which against New Zealand is going to be really hard to do. And all of it will be moot. All the net run rate stuff will be moot if New Zealand win. So New Zealand are probably licking their lips here, and they're thinking, right, well, Afghanistan are going to come hard at us. If we can keep our disciplines, then we might be able to either bundle Afghanistan out early, or even if we're setting a target of 140, 150, because Afghanistan are going to have to go really hard and try to go at like 10 and over to get there in enough time to go beyond India, that maybe 150 will be enough. So, look, I might be overthinking it. Maybe the players are a bit more simple about it, but their coaches will be looking at that situation, and the Afghan coaches will be saying, well, we've got no choice. We're going to have to go after it. Just back to this game, though, the Scotland-India game, and look, it's taken 4 games into the World Cup, but India have finally worked out what is their strongest side, and it's always to have Ashwin and Jadeja in it. And now they've realised that you add Chakravarti as well. You put that on top of Bumrah and Shami, and you've got Hardik Pandya, who I believe is now past fit to bowl. So you've got him if necessary, if one of the bowlers doesn't come off. But it's a measure of the fact that Indian cricket and Indian T20 cricket has been fragmented really by the IPL. The players have been playing for different franchises. They've been in different bubbles. They've not been together as a team all this time. And that, to me, is partly why it's taken India so long to work out what is their perfect formula. And secondly, what we saw here was that India, when they know what they need to do, are a fearsome and terrifying side. The problem they had, I think, was when they came into the tournament, they were feeling their way into the tournament. They weren't as positive. They didn't have the same intent as they've had in the last two games. Once their backs are against the wall, we've seen what they've done to Afghanistan. They went hell for leather straight from the start of the game, scoring 210, batting like we'd not seen them do previously in the tournament. And then again today, all over Scotland, all over them, brilliant with the ball. Jadeja, fantastic. Shami, landing those Yorkers. Bumrah, we know what he can do. And just having those three spinners in Sharjah as well, where the ball keeps really low. It's really tough conditions, especially for associate batters against some of the best cricketers in the world. And then that sort of great clarity of mind. Now, like I say, that clarity of mind might have been a bit too clear. They might have won a bit too quickly. But, you know, you can't criticise a side for chasing down whatever it was, 86 in 6.3 overs. That is ludicrous hitting, and it was wonderful to watch. Rahul with an 18-ball 50. It was as clean striking as you can get. I really do feel for Scotland, because I think they've acquitted themselves well in this tournament. Actually, I think they've been a revelation to some people. Where they've come unstuck is that some of their more established names, like Richie Berrington, he's had a shocker of a tournament, really, in the Super 12 stage, 20 runs from 4 innings. Callum McLeod hasn't quite come to the party, as they say. But I think they, look, Michael Leask has been around for a long time, but he'll be pleased with the way he acquitted himself. You mentioned George Munsey, the reverse sweeps. He's got every shot against the spinners. He was terrific. It was such a shame he just didn't get the elevation on that ball from Shami and got out. I was thinking of you. I was thinking of the Bannerman there, because he had 24 off the first 27, and I thought, oh, hello. Well,
that 60 hit off Bumrah, I mean, that flick, I think it's still sailing into orbit as we talk. I mean, the observation made by Matt Roller, who co-hosted the other day, was that never has a man had a higher score of 29 in a tournament yet enhanced his reputation to such an extent. Like, he'll be picked up on the T20 circuit on the basis of his upside, his ceiling, which must be so high. I mean, a couple of those reverse sweeps as well off Ashwin in his first over. Yeah, it doesn't come off right. He ultimately is out for 24, but you can see something there, can't you? And it is a shame they were pulverised today, but for India's part, it's as though they were knowing what they had to do in these last two games, knowing how far they were behind on net run rate. That has sharpened their focus somewhat. Remembering, of course, that it's just 2 games ago where Rohit Sharma wasn't even opening. Now, I know they recalibrated the side a couple of times, but maybe that's a function of coming straight out of the IPL, not having a long time together as a team. We speculated this on Sunday when they did lose to New Zealand. New Zealand, who, by the way, I think have played it quite well in not needing to go too hard. Now, the obvious thing for them to have done, New Zealand, in their last 2 games would have been to have chased net run rate. But you think about it now in hindsight, all they needed to do was win, knowing that regardless, it was going to be a quasi quarterfinal against Afghanistan in their final fixture anyway. So maybe that's the right place for us to move on. But on the way to that, noting it was the quickest 50-run partnership of the competition. That was up in just 23 balls between Rohit Sharma and KL Rahul. You mentioned the 18-ball half century. Rohit made 30 off 16 balls, and then Surya Kumar Yadav, who missed a game to injury a couple of matches ago against New Zealand, sealed it with the most glorious straight 6. So it was sealed with a kiss, as it were, from SKY.
Just one last observation though before you move on. Virat Kohli coming in at 3. It was faintly hilarious. It was almost as if he'd worked out that they needed to slow down. And I know we often leave our great moments of the match to the very end, but can I just put in an early call for Kohli with 5 needed to win, and after the chaos and mayhem that we'd seen, carefully dabbing a ball into the onside for a single.
Yes, I did enjoy that as well. I think the way I interpreted that was the same way I interpreted KL Rahul down the ground for a single. They knew they had so many deliveries in hand to overtake Afghanistan. By that point, they were able to milk it, but no one told SKY, who, of course, then went bang at the end. Before we move off this game as well, Jadeja, who, I mean, a precocious talent, so much experience across the 3 formats. But, I mean, 2 wickets in his first over today, wickets in his first over in the game a couple of days ago against Namibia. He seems to be just reaching that stage of the tournament where he's turning the screws. And much as it is with Majib for Afghanistan, players are reluctant to go after him because the stumps are always in play.
He turns the ball, and that's the thing. We haven't seen a lot of spinners get a lot of turn out of the pitches. And the wicket, the bowled he got today, didn't turn a huge amount, but it turned the amount you need it to turn to get somebody out. He drags players forward, the ball dips, it turns, it goes past the outside edge. It's beautiful bowling. It's really lovely. Look, we've known that he's like this. You and I have talked about Jadeja and why he doesn't play every single game that India play pretty much the entire time he's alive. and it's because Indians are confused. They go Jadeja or Ashwin. No, you've got an embarrassment of riches. It's Jadeja and Ashwin.
Yes.
Simple as.
Why not have both? I think they got a bit spooked after the World Test Championship final. But
I agree.
Pleased to see they're beyond that. Let's go up the motorway to Sharjah, Dinger Central, where the big sixes have been thick and fast throughout the tournament, where New Zealand were playing Namibia, and it was the Black Caps batting first. Tell us about it in 30 seconds, Daniel.
New Zealand got off to a slow start. No one could really go beyond a strike rate of 100. Martin Guptill tried, got out. They pretty much all tried and got out. And at 97 for 4, with 4 overs to go, we wondered if there was a serious upset on our hands as Namibia bowled superbly. But then Phillips and Neesham cut loose with 67 runs in the last 4 overs. It set Namibia a target of 164. And to be brutally honest with you, they were never really in it on a pitch that was not conducive to walloping the ball. It was Sharjah. It keeps low. It's horrible. And they lost by 52 runs. It was, I'm afraid, a slightly longer predictable drubbing than the later game, which was a short predictable drubbing.
Yes, it could be said. So they were 117 for 7 at the end of their allotted overs after New Zealand made 163 for 4. What I would say is that until about the last 5 overs, you're thinking New Zealand might get caught short here. They might be 135 or 140. And the way that Namibia chased a couple of nights ago against Pakistan, that might be sort of in the frame. And they did start okay in terms of not losing any wickets until Van Linden was out for 25. It was 47 for 1. I think that's in the 8th over. So they got through the power play without loss against New Zealand's Bolt, Southey and co, which is not a bad effort. But yeah, they lacked that firepower. And when Visa was out leg before wicket to Southey, it was kind of game over. They needed 12s or 13s by that stage, and it really did deteriorate from there. They lost a clump of wickets, and the collapse was on through the middle overs. But yeah, Namibia bowled well, or they bowled tightly at least. And as you say, that they weren't able to get away. Williamson made just 28 from 24 deliveries, so a strike rate down at 111. It took until the end, as you say, 67 from the last 4. Phillips, who is coming along beautifully for New Zealand, 39 not out from 21 with 3 sixes. And Jimmy Neesham, friend of the final word, 35 not out from 23 with 2 sixes of his own. They exploded at the perfect time, which meant that Namibia were going to require a miracle given how inexperienced they are relative to the battle-hardened Black Caps.
Indeed, and Jimmy Neesham also got that crucial wicket. He bowled 1 over and picked up a wicket. And it's what he gives you in that team. When he comes off with bat, he's magnificent to watch, and he just allows a little bit of flexibility for Williamson. New Zealand have got a totally different game plan from every other side. We've seen spinners in the power play. We've seen, England have deployed Moeen Ali for 3 overs in the power play. They've used Adil Rashid for 2 overs in the power play. Afghanistan frequently, Mohammad Nabi bowls an over. We saw India today bowling spinners in the power play. Everyone bowls spinners in the power play, not New Zealand. They go Southey, Bolt, Milne. They let the ball swing, and it did swing for them. Namibia were equal to it. They didn't get away, but they were equal to it. The problem was always going to be, though, that on that pitch, once Santner and Sodhi came on to bowl, if they needed 9 and over at Sharjah, it's just difficult.
It's got worse, hasn't it? I mean, earlier in the tournament, it feels odd, doesn't it? Earlier in the tournament, Sharjah felt like the ground most likely for a team to do something outrageous and make a 250 score or something like that. Partly informed by the short boundary that you get when they're playing across to one side, and I suppose that's emphasised by the low hanging roofs. But it has got harder to bat there. A big emphasis on commentary was the lengthy bowlers, a seamer at Sharjah, which suited Tim Southey. After Santner bowled a lovely delivery to get rid of Bard when he came into the attack in the 8th over. So they already had Namibia on the back foot. Then they were able to turn the screws. Bolt picked up a couple of wickets to emphasise that he still remains such a difficult bowler to get away. 2 for 20. Southey 2 for 15 from his 4, and Van Lingen top scored for Namibia with 25. Namibia have got one more game to go in the competition, Daniel, but I feel like we've seen quite a lot of them through the qualification round 1 and the last fortnight in the main draw, the Super 12s, and they're going to be able to take quite a bit away from this, aren't they? It's not like they've been blown away in games. I mean, really far from it. They've been competitive the whole way through.
Well, this is the first time that they've played a side in this tournament who have the word land in their title and have lost. They beat Ireland, they beat Netherlands, and they beat Scotland. So we wondered if we were in for the full sweep of the land four. But I think they've made a really good account for themselves, and I've been really impressed. Everyone says it with Trumpelman, for example. I think there was an over left unbowled there today, which might have been bowled on another day. I like Schultz. He was bowling in the power play. He's a character, that left armour. I like him, and they've got. No one's going to be walloping them for 220, 230. I say that, of course, India are playing them in the last game, so you never know, they might. But look, when you see an associate side that's got a bowling attack that bowls to its field, and they do that, and they field well, then you just think that they've got something about them, and it relies really on one or two of their batters coming off. And on another day, it'll happen. If you replayed this T20 tournament 3 times, Namibia are going to pull off a surprise once or twice, because David Visa's going to get 70 or 40 to back up what the bowlers regularly do. So I think there's a lot to be positive about Namibian cricket. They're going absolutely in the right direction.
So just to repeat our point before, Afghanistan, New Zealand becomes the game that matters most, because if New Zealand win, it's a moot point what happens between Namibia and India. So that'll be a fascinating end to Group 2. Daniel, best we move on to the Final Word Hall of Fame. Of course, for Woodstock Cricket, friends of yours and mine, woodstockcricket.co.uk, TFW20 is the offer code. And I did think about Woodstock today, Daniel. We saw Rohit Sharma in, I think it was the 5th over of the power play hit a mighty 6 out over mid-wicket, a couple of 4s through the offside, and he called for a new bat, and they brought out 6 bats for him, and I wanted to nominate that for the Hall of Fame. I'll tell you what, if he was with Woodstock Rohit Sharma, he wouldn't need 6 bats coming out, because these are highly durable, quality bats, the best bat in the UK as declared by a major magazine this year, woodstockcricket.co.uk, offer code TFW20. So I'll start there. My first nomination, Rohit Sharma, move to Woodstock.
I couldn't agree with you more. They are the best bats. They are just superb. I know a couple of people who've been using them. Their averages have gone skyrocketing through the roof. Get yourself one of these bats. My Hall of Fame, though, today from that game was Ish Sodhi being hit on the bonds by a ball that came flying back at him. I don't know why. I just always enjoy those things. People prefer, the groin botherer, but I quite like the sort of accidental knock on the head, the ball that's sort of hit back and it bounces up and it sort of, how has that happened? And in a game that didn't have many stellar moments, to be brutally honest with you, I suppose I took an unusual delight in that. I don't know if that tells you something awful about me.
I want to see the groin botherer used as a headline in a tabloid newspaper when someone's got themselves in trouble with the LAW at some point. I want to nominate Gerhard Erasmus, the captain of Namibia. He was bowling today with a broken ring finger, and then he managed to skittle Kane Williamson, if you don't mind. Only one of the most, one of the premier batsmen, in the world across the formats of the game. But it takes, yes, via an inside edge, and yes, it was an arm ball, but the bravery showed by Erasmus to get through his spell, 1 for 22 from his 4 overs. But yeah, he's a guy who we've been watching now seemingly for about a month. He's done a lot right across the competition with the team he's been overseeing, and what a good moment for him today, and doing it, as I say, with a broken finger.
I've really enjoyed him. I've enjoyed a bunch of characters in that Namibian side. He's certainly one of them, and he's part of what makes them such an awkward proposition, certainly with the ball.
And last but not least, I'll note that Virat Kohli won the toss today at long last. I think, what was it, something like he's lost 13 of the last 14. And as final word, listeners would love, it was on his birthday! Virat Kohli on his birthday. Finally wins the toss and is out there for the winning run today for India. Tomorrow we move back to Group 1. The first game is Australia against the West Indies at Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Zayed Stadium. And then England against South Africa at Sharjah. If Australia win and England do too, net run rate won't be a factor, but if Australia win and South Africa win and they can make up 0.4 and whatever else Australia might get when playing the Windies, then it's game on. Of course, the Windies could knock over Australia, and then South Africa are in the box seat and will only need to get beyond Australia on that run rate. A few fascinating scenarios there, Daniel, but I suppose from Australia's perspective, they've just got to control the controllables, to use the old cliche, and get the job done in the early game.
Absolutely, and if England beat South Africa and Australia win, then they're through. It's as simple as that. It's going to be, look, we're going to be looking at numbers tomorrow. We always do. We're at that part of the competition. I'm really looking forward to it, both tomorrow and the next day. They're going to be crackers, I think.
Thank you, Daniel. You'll be back on the show covering those two games with Isabel Westbury tomorrow. I'm taking a day off. I'm up in Yorkshire at the moment, a part of the world that's generating plenty of attention for all the wrong reasons, but I'm looking forward to going out and doing normal things and not watching the cricket all day long. I must say, though, I enjoyed today. It was day 14. Was it day 14? Was it day 15? I have no idea. Whatever the day was, I was watching it. Daniel was commentating on it. The winners were New Zealand and they were India as well, who are both still in the hunt for that second semi-final place from Group 2. The Final Word Daily will be back tomorrow. Good night.
Good night.